I'm Tanya from Maybe Crafted, and I've had a lot of you ask me how I'm making the masks that I'm making. And I'm sure that you've seen a lot of different tutorials out there and a lot of different patterns. Some for these contoured masks that are shaped to fit your face a little bit differently, but they've got these curved seams on them that for a beginning sewer might be a little bit tricky. And they certainly take a little bit more time because all of these seams need to be clipped and pressed in order for them to lay flat and have a nice look to them. So I have only made a few of these because of the amount of time that they take. Most of what I've made are these surgical style flat masks. They have some pleats on the side to allow that to contour over your face. And because I've run out of the bias tape straps that I had started with, I'm using fabric ties. I've read a lot on the internet about how healthcare providers, their ears are starting to get raw from the elastic around behind their ears, and honestly, elastic is pretty hard to find these days. So if you've gotten a kit from me for how to make masks, this is how I make them. In the kit, you'll find 3 different fabrics, or 3 different kinds of fabrics, I guess. One is the outside layer of the fabric. One is a piece of flannel, and another is just another cotton fabric. And I've done a little bit of research, and it seems like 2 fabrics get out just a little bit more than, or prevent about 50% of the any type of bacteria or virus coming through. There's some research that indicates that a 3rd layer of fabric protects just a little bit more. So I've been making them with 3 fabrics. And you'll also find 2 1.5-inch strips, the width of the fabric, that are used for ties. These squares are cut at 6 inches by 9 inches. So the first thing you do is take your outside fabric and leave it right side up. Then you take your flannel fabric and decide which side you would like to be your right side. In typical construction, it would be this brightly colored side, but this kind of irritates me, so sometimes I've been putting it so that it's a little bit duller down, so that will be considered the right side of the fabric here. I layer that on top. And then I take my lining fabric. It really doesn't matter which direction this goes because nobody is going to see it. So those are all lined up. If you feel comfortable, you can pin this along here, but you're just going to sew with a 1/4 to 1/2 inch seam along that side and along the other long side. Because these fabrics were cut quickly, it looks like that maybe I didn't quite get a full seam allowance there, so I'm going to run another line of stitching there. But just check to make sure that you've gone through all 3 layers of fabrics. Then you're going to flip this right side out. So remember, this is the right side of my fabric, and I selected the wrong side of that flannel so that it looks a little bit more neutral. I flip that right side out. I'm going to give this just a finger press here to try to get that right to the edge of my seam. And then I'm going to do an edge stitch or top stitch along that edge. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good here. If your stitching is not exactly straight, don't be alarmed. Some of you may have a foot that keeps it nice and straight along that edge. And for sure, I know some of you are freaking out about how fast my machine goes. Your machine, if you have a home machine, does not go anywhere close to that fast. And just do what you can do. Now I'm going to take my strap, and I've figured out approximately where the center of that is, and I am eyeballing that to approximately the center of the side of this mask. Right side up on that strip and right side up on the mask. I anchor that in place just to hold it there for a second, and now I'm going to eyeball a couple of pleats. And a few people have asked me, how big are these pleats? And they're anywhere from 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. Notice I did not measure those, I just eyeballed them. This should be about 3 inches by the time you've finished that pleat. Now I'm going to go to the end of my strap. I'm going to fold these edges into the center and then fold it in half again. So it's as though it were a piece of double fold bias tape. And then I'm going to stitch along that strap. Again, my machine goes way way faster than yours will at home. So don't think that you have to do this at turbo speed. You just have to do it. You do not have to worry about whether or not your stitching is perfectly accurate or whether or not you have this folded exactly. The key is that these are going to go over an N95 mask or be used by those of us going to the grocery store or functioning out in the world to remind us not to touch our face, to protect those N95 masks. I'm going to stitch all the way to the end of that strap. My machine automatically does some back stitching for me and clips those threads. So again, that's a time saver for me that you may not have on your machine, or you may have to do some extra things. Oh, my machine just came unthreaded, but you can get the idea that we're just going to complete that other side exactly the same way as we did the first, and before you know it, you'll have a mask completed. I've put 26 masks in the kits that I've made, so if you live locally and you're picking those up, please feel free to distribute those to neighbors and family and friends who can use those, or if you know folks who work in the hospital or as first responders, please give them to them, please pass them out. If you are distributing them to people, encourage them to wash them before they use them, because even though you may be asymptomatic, we don't know whether or not we have contracted the virus or not. So just a friendly reminder to people that you're giving these to help keep them safe and secure. Thank you so much for the sewing that you're doing. Thank you so much for the distribution that you're doing. Thank you so much for staying home and staying safe and keeping us all healthy. Hopefully we'll be able to be together soon. Thanks.